Welcome. Thank you for joining us, all of you, and Pat particularly, all the way from Ireland. And I encountered Pat first of all in his wonderful writings that I ran across and found myself sharing on our Facebook sites and whatever. And through that, I dropped into his uh, Facebook site. What is it called now, Pat?
Zoom to awareness.
That's right. Zoom to awareness. I don't know why I just blocked on that, but that happens too. And it's a wonderful site, and he's always open to any of us here dropping in on his cafes, if you will, without any kind of further commentary, I'll just open up to Pat, and Pat will set the pace. Oh, I would like to just say, if you would like to speak, just kind of like raise your hand. And we'll probably, I'm not sure. We've all got our mics open right now, and I don't know whether we need to be closing them except the one who's speaking. But it's kind of like depends on how much we want to be, whichever mode you would like to be in. I have no preference. I'm going to keep my mic open, but that's just me. Okay, so Pat, please, thank you for joining us, and start where you will.
Okay. So I'm going to start in the way we start our Zoom meeting, Zoom to awareness. And what we say is, we gather in awareness as awareness. We gather in love as love. We gather in peace as peace. That's the way we open the meeting. And just to explain where I'm coming from, I'd say about 8 years ago, I had a huge, what I would call catharsis in the presence of one of the Stuart Schwartz, actually, who I had never met before, and it was actually the catalyst for a deepening of my journey, and it was very painful, and it was worse than being brought to your knees. It was lying on my back in pain and in complete surrender to my true nature, and the realization that all of this suffering and all of this pain I'd done to myself. I'd actually done this to myself. And it was a massive catharsis. Nothing was said at this meeting. I met this man for the first time, and all he said to me was hello. But what was he was able to hold that space for me, and I was ready to go into that space. And it wasn't the end of the journey. It was the beginning of a deeper understanding of what my true nature was or is. So I had realized that day that all of my pain and suffering was caused by my beliefs, by all these conceptual ideas and thoughts that I had about myself. And all of the painful conditioning that I'd been subjected to and taken on board, and which I had always been seeking to escape from. And none of my escape routes actually worked.
Mm.
And finally, they all became cul-de-sacs. There was no way I could go down any of those escape routes anymore. And so I was ready. I was ready to turn around and face my true self. You know, so that was very, very. It was a most important moment in my journey.
Yeah.
But as I say, it wasn't what I would call an end game. What happened from then on was I began to realize uh, that my true nature needed to be nurtured from my point of view, not from its point of view. I needed to nurture my understanding of my true nature. And I was very lucky to find somebody, a spiritual teacher, who was into tantric meditations. And I was able to explore the body and look at all this other residual contracted energy that was in my body, and allow it to move authentically, allow the body to start moving authentically. So in that, there was an understanding that I wasn't my body, but there was also the realization that I had put my body on a pedestal, and I had referred to my body. It was almost like I revered my body as God. That was who God was. That was uh, that was my idol.
Mhm.
So I was referring to that idol all my life, and all its contracted negative energies, and all the finite mind's um, misplaced beliefs and concepts had become what I was revering, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that the finite mind and my body was my God. I didn't realize that.
Mm.
I didn't realize that was my hierarchy. But then I began to realize that there was there was a higher power, there was another source, and that source wasn't something separate to me. It was truly who I am. That's truly who I am. But that residual egoic contracted energy in the body is not something that goes overnight, and that wasn't my experience that it did. It was my experience that it had to be looked at, and it had to be uh, acknowledged, but no longer identified with. I had to learn, I had to unlearn all the identifications that I had previously thought were my genuine true nature, which they weren't. And through that process, it came to me to start writing, and to spontaneously write whatever was coming in whatever meditations that I was doing, whatever came up, to contemplate it, and then to allow myself to write, and to post what I write up on Facebook, which at the start was daunting, I have to say, because an awful lot of what I was writing, I didn't even know where it was coming from. I actually didn't know where it was coming from, and I surprised myself with some of the stuff that came out. And it would only be after I posted it on Facebook that I'd actually read it and actually understand what I was saying myself.
Yeah.
But it was a great exercise in trusting my true nature, because obviously when you put something up, especially in the circles that we're in here, there's obviously going to be people who will criticize and um, place disparaging remarks, all that sort of stuff, which is very can be very personal stuff. But that was good, because it was a lesson in not taking things personally. that if I was to trust my true nature, I had to also deal with how I was still taking things personally, and you know, realize that I'm not now acting out of that person, so I don't have to take things personally anymore. I can allow myself to spontaneously articulate what my true nature wants me to say, and not have to worry about what other people think. It's not significant. It doesn't matter. It's meaningless what other people's opinions are. I don't have to take it personally, and I don't have to worry about the personal point of views of others. That was so important. That was such a big lesson. And the more I trusted myself, and I do it every day, and there's an enormous amount of stuff out there that I've posted on Facebook at this stage.
Yes.
And sometimes in memories on Facebook, you'll get your memories of maybe 5 years or 7 years or whatever. And I look back at some of the stuff I wrote and I wonder, where the hell did that come from? Why? Because sometimes there's a deeper realization of that. Then suddenly it pops up. 6 years ago, you wrote this, and I'm looking at it and I said, sure, I knew that at some place. I knew that 6 years ago, you know. So what came out of it was I set up a Zoom to awareness meeting, and the Zoom to awareness meeting was set up by us starting the meeting with how I've started talking to you today. You know, we gather in awareness as awareness. We gather in love as love. We gather in peace as peace. So what's hosting the meeting is our true nature. It's the peace, the love, and the joy of our true nature that hosts everything. That's the host. It's what's hosting this meeting now, you know. And there is no need to worry about what's said. You don't have to be afraid to say or do anything in that meeting or here or anywhere. You can be spontaneous because love doesn't judge you. Love doesn't judge you. So it doesn't matter if you are speaking from and articulating what your true nature wants to say, or if you're acting out of or speaking from a place of the ego, the residual ego that may be still there. Because in love, everything is okay. It's all okay. All is well. All is accepted. But the courage to be spontaneous, even if you're saying what others might perceive as wrong, is more important. It's because when we start being spontaneous and expressing ourselves without fear and without judgment and without guilt, we open ourselves up to trusting who we really are. So in the meetings, we don't have any donation or any fee. We don't record the meetings. And there's no hierarchy. There's no hierarchy. So we may have a theme, but we contemplate the theme. And it doesn't really matter where that goes. It doesn't really matter. Because what we have is a safe place for people to be themselves, you know, to trust themselves. And so what I'd suggest is that we contemplate that we contemplate there is no hierarchy in reality. So if you just close your eyes for a minute, take a deep breath and say to yourself, there is no hierarchy in reality. You know, what does that mean to you? You know, what does that mean to you? what connotations are triggered when you realize that there is no hierarchy in reality, that there's nobody to look up to, and there's nobody looking down on you, you know, that you can tip your hat. You don't have to tip your hat to anybody, and nobody can tip their hat to you. It's the connotations and the fear that's triggered by realizing that there isn't anybody that you have to bow down to, you know. And we were talking about it earlier there, you know, about, you know, in putting your ego as your God, that is a form of hierarchy. You know, you're putting the ego before yourself. So even in that, there's a connotation that needs to be looked at. So there is no hierarchy in reality. No. There's no father and son. There's no mother and daughter. There's no teacher and pupil. There's no boss and worker. There's none of these. There's none of these suggestions that there is some sort of division or separation, or someone who is less empowered than another, you know. In reality, there are no others. There's just this loving source that's indivisible, in which all of us are appearing, and in which everything is allowed and nothing is judged. And nobody is guilty. So I'll just leave it at that.
Pat, perhaps you could share with us the experience, if you will, of your daily aware living, the look and feel and sense of it. I know we're putting it into words, and awareness and the lived experience is wordless. But here we meet in this wonderful medium. And one of the things that Filo and I set out to do with this forum was to have a forum for the expression of aware living, and kind of devoted to that, if you will, but not I also but still it's a constant lived beingness that we share. And it was something that I was curious about for some time before it happened here. And now there's an everyday living in that way. And I love to share it, not just me sharing, but sharing it in this form and celebrate it. And perhaps you might have a few comments about that for yourself?
Yeah, because in everyday life and in the people that I'm meeting during each day, it's not a Zoom to awareness forum. It's not this forum. We're dealing with the ordinary people in the street who have no idea maybe about what this is about, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a practice of demonstrating love. It's allowing ourselves or myself to remind myself each time I'm with anybody that my practice is to demonstrate love. Demonstrate. And I don't always demonstrate love. You see, I make mistakes and I get pulled in and I get triggered. But I know that I can demonstrate love. I know that I can be quiet when I want to react. I know I can offer solace when I want to push somebody away, you know. I know that I can trust my true nature in the presence of anybody and that it will be for the better, you know. And I'm not without my challenges. I have challenges, I've family challenges, I've work challenges, I've people that I meet, and I have difficult people that I have to contend with. And I don't always get it right, you know. But I know that I can do things better by listening to my true nature and demonstrating love in much the same way as we do in the meetings. And the beauty of the meetings in this gathering and the gathering we have in Zoom to Awareness is that we can practice that with people who we actually know, understand what we're doing, and we can practice non-judgment, and we can practice staying present and being present in the presence of others. So it's a worthwhile exercise to gather in awareness with people who are of the same understanding, but only to bring it back into the world, because there isn't any point in running away from the world. There's no point in that. Like, I ran away all my life, so I don't want to run away anymore. And I want to be able to have intimate relationships with the people I love, you know. And the only way to be intimate is to be present and to choose love rather than my egoic contracted energy, you know. And when it's triggered, and it can be triggered, there's times when you have to say, I'm sorry, you know, and quickly acknowledge that I have overreacted or I've acted from a place that's not truly myself, you know. You know, the old habits die hard, they say. But once you begin to notice them and become aware of them and don't judge yourself anymore for doing the wrong thing, which is, there is no wrong thing, it gets easier the more you practice, and also the fruits of it. Because I've seen with my own son and with my wife, changes in our relationships, and a more mutual understanding of one another than I've ever had before, you know. So that has been tremendous. But it is, and it's difficult at times because you know, society tells you to react in a certain way to certain things, you know, and we've been well educated to act out of self-interest, egoic self-interest. So when you're challenged not to do that, you know, to remind yourself that there's a better way than that, and to trust, you know, that it'll be okay, it'll work out. That's how I live this, you know. That's how I try to live it. And constantly making mistakes and reminding myself not to judge myself, you know. Yeah.
Ella, did you have a comment? Your speaker's off. You're mute.
There we
Yep.
go. I'm sorry about that. I hear what Pat is saying, and thank you very much, Pat. I have a question or something that perhaps we could explore or discuss. There's the constant human effort to strive towards becoming better, a better person, loving, etc., etc. And then there's the awareness that is behind all that. I mean, I hearken back to Tony Parsons, who was a bit of a wild card in the whole non-duality arena, and I'm sure you're familiar with him being from Ireland. And he talks about the kind of, this is what's happening, and the awareness is there, but then there's this manifestation of things arise constantly. They arise, they arise. We have all our past with us, which is our upbringing, etc., and that affects every day how we interact with people. So perhaps for Pat and for everybody else, how do you see this juxtaposition between striving to become a better person, because we're never going to get there, and this awareness that is perhaps the nature that you're talking about, our true nature, that is the foundation of everything that is beyond all the manifestations?
Yeah, because our true nature is not a person. It's not a person. But what's happening in the world, very clearly what's happening, is that there are awoke egos, that the personhood appears to be becoming more aware. You know, the personhood appears to be improving our relationships. It appears to, and it's exploring so many areas. You know, our psychiatrists, our psychologists, our scientists are exploring so many different areas. And what they're exploring is diversity. Diversity, because from the ego's point of view, from the person's point of view, this world is diverse. It is diverse. We have biodiversity, which we are all becoming more and more aware of. The incredible biodiversity of nature. We look out at the planets and we have planetary diversity, galaxy diversity. You know, it's just incredible to look out with our Hubble Space Telescope and see the amazing diversity of the universe. And atomically, we can go inside and look at the diversity of atoms, and we can explore that too. But that's only from the person's point of view. That's our personal point of view. Everything appears to be diverse. Everything. And it's what the ego can identify with. It can identify with diversity. It's not to say that it's not helpful. It's extremely helpful, because we're now exploring neurodiversity, which is very important for people on the spiritual path, because we all need to understand that no individual, no human being is wired the same. We're not wired the same. We're all wired differently. So there's a huge neurodiversity, which means that my point of view could never possibly be the same as your point of view. Couldn't possibly be. Absolutely not. My expectations could be as a person that you should understand my point of view. But we're now realizing that that's not possible. That every single human being on the planet is wired differently. Every single one of us is wired differently. You know, I'm amazed at this. I have an autistic son, and I have realized, and very painfully realized, that all my expectations of him could never be fulfilled. You know, very painfully understood that. But you know, what's so important in this is that the power that's greater than all of that is indivisible. The power that's greater than all of that is love. You see, I can't expect my son to be like me, and but I can love him. Do you know, I can feel the pain and the hurt of not being able to connect and relate on a personal level, but I can understand that in love, we're intimate. We're the same. We're all the same. What appears to divide us is only from the point of view of the person. What we are is indivisible. The love that we are joins us together. We don't realize how intrinsically the same we are in love. It's so important to see this. And it's not that there's nothing wrong with the way the world is going and the way we're beginning to understand our neurodiversity and our biodiversity and the universal diversity. It's all part of the plan. It's all part of the script. You know, when I was growing up as a kid, if a boy in school had autism or ADHD, he was beaten around the classroom and put in the corner. You know, that was what happened, because we didn't understand. You know, as persons, we didn't understand that everybody wasn't the same, and that it was important that people were dismissed and abused because they didn't fit in as square pegs into round holes. You know, so all of that is so important. We don't dismiss any of this personal awareness that's happening in the world. It's really important. But what's most important is to realize that what we really are is love, and that love is embracing all of that and perceives no difference. Perceives no difference. In the eyes of love, there is no diversity. It's all the same. It's all oneness. It's all whole. You know. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's what I needed to say. You know.
Thank you, Pat. Philo, did you have a question? And Chitra, did you have one earlier? Philo?
Yeah, I was gonna. I want to address what Alice said about striving to do good. Was that what you were saying, Ala? That how do we?
Yeah, but perhaps striving to do good, improve ourselves. It kind of reminds me of the song "Come Back, Baby, I've Changed." You know, we're really not going to change fundamentally, but something that is outside and beyond that is foundational, that is just this awareness that sees what is going on and how you interact and how the world is acting, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, yeah, so that's it.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. From what I've seen, that there isn't, the striving is not really coming from the person as such. It's coming from the being. So that the view here is that there's just one being, and everything in it is that being. And it has its own purposes or its own way of operating through every individual. So when one's striving to be a better person, say, to do better with the relationships, that's being operating. And being is playful, so it may not, the striving may not go anywhere. It may not work. It may just be a sense of frustration. And that's also being. So from the way that I look at things is that as the awareness with the striving arising, it's just seen, it's observed. Striving is here, and it's doing this, this, and this, and it's succeeding or failing. And there's no judgment in that. It's only when we get identified with the striving that we begin to judge whether it's working or not. And I think it also ties into this idea of hierarchy, in that when we're striving to be better, it means that we have this view of something better. There's a hierarchy in place. And we're trying to reach this upper rung of the hierarchy. But the hierarchy is fluid, in my view. So there may be a higher and a lower level to something, but those levels can change. And so the thing that is striving for something to be better can be the very thing that's stopping, can be the very thing in the way of the striving to be better. And so the hierarchy shifts, and maybe through the failure, someone else being better, maybe through that failure, what you're trying to do can happen. And often athletes see this a lot. They talk about how, like Michael Jordan, his way of succeeding for him was to fail. That's what he said. Every time I miss a shot, that's me that's me eventually being the person that can make that shot. So failure was his path. So if we're not judging what happens, then we don't have to feel bad about missing our goal of not being able to be the better person. Maybe it's not designed that way. Maybe something else has to happen first. So that's kind of how I view that when it arises, and we're always striving.
I would suggest that you know, there is no person here in this. It's not personal, and it's the person. The person is only from the separate self's point of view. Like our true nature doesn't take things personally. It doesn't. There is no personal point of view in the source of everything. It doesn't perceive what the person perceives. It doesn't have the point of view of a person. Like what's happening, what the way the world is evolving, apparently evolving, is that the finite minds are becoming more aware and treating each other, apparently treating each other from a place of awareness. But ultimately, what we have to realize is that all of this is happening in love. All of this is happening in awareness, in the awareness that doesn't take anything personally. Nothing. There's no personal involvement with what's appearing in it. It's not harmed, it's not enhanced, it's not diminished by anything that happens. It's not. It's allowing everything to happen. And it's never judging anything. No judgment whatsoever. And there is no hierarchy. It's like what I was saying to you earlier about that I can believe in God, but God doesn't believe in me. God has no beliefs. The source has no beliefs. It doesn't believe in any conceptual idea of itself. It doesn't believe in any ideas about itself. It's only from the finite point of view that we have some conceptual idea of what God is or what the source is. And we believe in those things. And all of those beliefs are what causes the division in the world. Because no two individuals will believe the same thing. So we're conflicted immediately in just what we believe about God. It's the cause of conflict. But God has no beliefs. God is an atheist. God doesn't need beliefs. It doesn't need to have a conceptual idea of itself. You know? So you can believe in God, but God doesn't believe in you. You know, I'm just appearing, my persona is just appearing in awareness. It will come and go. It doesn't diminish awareness. So if I believe that I exist, then I'm appearing in the awareness. If I no longer believe in the conceptual ideas of myself, then I join with my true nature, which is awareness. It's not personal.
Razia, go ahead. You have your hand raised. Unmute. And,
Hi, Pat. Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, and we were talking about what you're talking about is, in a way, dualistic. If we have to see that there is a God and something separate from this God. And if you look at it, there's just this awareness in which images seemingly appear. But it's almost like dreamlike, you know? I don't know, I feel that. And yeah, to think that there is separation, I mean, there's something other than us. There's just us, you know? And there is this feeling, the appearance of this otherness. And I mean, it seemingly is the only way where we seem to belong, you know? But I don't know if it's just like a movie, like nothing is happening, you know? Nothing seems to happen. Like if you look at Ella now, she's talking, but there's talking happening. But Ella is not really doing much. You know, she's just, I don't know if you get my drift. Sorry. Yeah, so I didn't see it as being separate. And I like the poem that you wrote, or was it just saying, where you said, I can't quote it exactly, but you said, there are no others, you know? There are no others. It's just this appearing as others. And it had Pat Nolan written there, so that's how I remember.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have the ability to have the experiencing of loving one another, to be the experiencing of love, you know, and that's real. That's real. But the point of view of the separate point of view of the ego is not real. That's not real.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying, because there cannot be a hierarchy, because for a hierarchy to exist, there will have to be an otherness, you know?
Exactly.
And there isn't one, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, how is there a God separate from me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to go back to the hierarchy, the fluidity of hierarchy, because I work in a school setting, All right, so there is a hierarchy there. But what I'm seeing when it's going well, is that the hierarchy is fluid. What I mean by that is when I'm speaking to the class, they're listening. But when one of them is speaking to me or speaking to the class, we're all listening. And in that way, everyone is heard. And so the hierarchy shifts. That's kind of in an ideal situation. Now, in many cases, in schools and in other places, that doesn't happen. You know, the teacher, you listen to me, I don't listen to you, that kind of thing. But when it's really harmonious, everyone is switching that role of being the one in quotes at the top of the hierarchy. And the insight that I have into that is that as one being, as everyone is being, and that being is in harmony, even though it may not look like that to the individual mind. It may look like conflict, or it may look like argumentative or something like that. But in fact, if we were to look in the internal workings of our body, we would see those same relationships of conflict and hierarchical structures, seemingly hierarchical. But in fact, every single part, every iota of the body is necessary for the entirety. And in that way, there's no hierarchy. But in interactions and from the phenomenal point of view, looking at the world as it is, we see hierarchical structures. It's just that we are not understanding that it's one whole thing that's moving here. So if we identify with being a leader or being a follower, then we miss the big picture. So there's no hierarchy, yes, but there is hierarchy. It's both.
What you're saying is that in relative terms, there is a hierarchy. You know, there is a parent and a child, a teacher and a pupil. You know, there's a boss and an employee. There's a leader, a political leader, and the constituents. Like in relative terms, and in the world of separation, there is division, and there is apparently hierarchy. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be a world of separation. And
Well,
for those models to still play out, like as I was saying, if when the child is talking to me, I'm listening with all of my attention on that child at that moment is in charge. I'm listening to him or her openly. And it can be that way. It's often not, but it can be.
well,
And
that's what I
so
was
for me,
suggesting.
the non-dual living is to try to be that way. Is to
That's
see.
exactly what I'm. That's what I was suggesting to James, that, you know, that to bring this into everyday living, that we need to demonstrate love. So what you're actually espousing there is a teacher who is demonstrating love to the child and allowing and respecting that child's true nature to flourish. So you're saying that, you know, I acknowledge that your true nature has the right to expression, and I'm not coming to you from an abusive form of power, but I'm actually encouraging you to express your true self. You know,
Yeah, so that it's all happening
empowering.
spontaneously. It's not
Yeah,
like I'm thinking all those things. It's just what
yeah.
happens when there's harmony.
But isn't that expressing love? You know,
It
isn't
is,
that
of
what you're
course,
doing? Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Very much.
So there, you see, there's no hierarchy in love, because love is not trying to be above anybody. Love is actually encouraging us all to be the same. It acknowledges our sameness, and it wants us to flower. It wants us to be an expression of it. So if one is coming from that awareness into a schoolroom, you're actually loving the student. You're being intimate with that student from your true nature's point of view, and you're acknowledging that child's true nature. You know, I wouldn't see that as being hierarchical at all.
It's interesting to hear you're talking about the same thing. And you mentioned earlier about the uniqueness of each and every one of the 7.2 billion people on the planet, etc. And that maybe we could talk a bit about love, just to move it into the one of the things that comes up to me about love is it's not a word as it's always been, or feeling, or even a philosophy, or a caring, and all of the things that we've been taught about love, although it can be the expression there. But what is love itself? What is love itself? Is it an act? I would say it's got to be an act. In other words, the word love is not a kind of a dormant, I love this, I love that, or there's no I in there, but that love is an action.
Well, I would say that love is non-judgmental awareness.
There you go.
I
You know, it's
can I just
it's the awareness that has no judgment.
Yeah.
I saw Chitra shaking her head. I wonder if she wants to say something, and then Colombe has her hand raised. But Chitra, do you have something you want to say about love? Can I mute us?
You're muted.
There we go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like a new age expression, but you are love. You are love. And from my point of view, whatever love that you experience in a body, on a plane, in a state, is just reflected love. It's not what you, it's not your love. Does that make sense? And this love that we are, you know, some people don't call it love, they just call it peace or bliss. And you can't separate love from awareness, consciousness, the light that you are. You can't separate love from the omnipotence, omnipresent, and omniscience that you are. It's beyond love, it's beyond the world, really. So, and I think that any love that you're experiencing is just reflected. I think everything in duality is reflected. Does that make sense? So what we are is, I call it a supreme energy. And that supreme energy is love. But it's not just love, it's awareness, consciousness, light, omnipotence, omnipresence, and omniscience. It never changes. It's always the same. That makes sense? Anybody?
I think that makes perfect sense. You know, that's because as I say, it's non-judgmental awareness. It's the awareness.
I don't like talking about love with a bunch of strange men. So
Is that love?
so
Is that love talking? Is that
Uh,
love? Is
what?
that love?
Is that love? Not wanting to talk about love with strange men? No.
Yeah.
Colombe, can you
Hi, hi everyone. It's Colombe. It's
Colombe?
very French. Yeah. I really love the word wordless or nameless, because for me love is like that. It's wordless and nameless. And I remember many years ago I was sitting in front of my therapist in pain, and in all my beliefs, and in all that, what we call that person. And she looked at me after, I think, 10 or 12 sessions. She looked at me, she said, Colombe, I love you very much. And it hit me. It even hurt me. And I look at her and I said, you cannot love me because you're my therapist, and it's not right for a therapist to love me. And she looked at me and she said, that love that I have for you have nothing to do with you. And I kind of, and she looked at me again and she said to me, Colombe, do you like flowers? I said, yes, I do like flowers. And she said to me, what kind of flower do you love? I said, I love all flowers. But she asked me, she said, is there one that really, kind of, gets me? I said, yeah, I really love the sunflower. And she asked me, she said, why do you love the sunflower? I said, because it's a sunflower. What did the sunflower have to do for you to love it? I said, nothing. And she looked at me. She said, love, we are all loved. And love is like that. And for me, I'm retired and I still work with kids in kindergarten. And when they all come to me and look at me in the eyes and hold me and tell me, Madame Colombe, we loved you, that is pure and spontaneous. And it hit me. And for me, when I talked with a kid, I acknowledge that part of it, him or her. And I still think that love is wordless and nameless, and it's without judgment. And when I have no judgment whatsoever in the present moment, in a situation, I'm in the awareness and I'm in love. But it's my own experience. Like Pat was saying, we are all wired differently. And I really love, Pat, when you say about your son, because I'm going through that with my sister. But in love, I would like the connection with my sister that I have. I can't. But in love, her and me are intimate when I'm there. And I know that because I feel it and I cannot explain it. But I know that something happened that is nameless and wordless when I go to that. So I'm learning with life and experience that sometimes I need to name things or explain it, or and when I go there, I lose the awareness because I get into conceptual things. And it's like that. And I'm just going to share an experience with you. I really enjoy walking in the forest with the dogs on my own. And I practice not trying to name nothing, just being there. Just being there. Not always easy because my head is full of, you know, words and stuff like that. But this morning I was laying in the bed at my sister in the country. And suddenly the dogs were there, you know, I had all the fur family around me. And I was saying to myself, being just present to that moment where I was, in my emotions, in my aches and pain of that body that, you know, is getting old, and smelling the bacon, and feeling the air outside, and feeling the humidity, the dampness. I was right in that moment, and that's where I had to be, aware, alive in that moment. And for me, that is awareness. For me today, that is awareness. And I really love that too when you say, when I'm there in love, I don't take things personally. So I wanted to thank you. I really enjoy those cafe. Thank you very much, Jane, for doing, inviting me and everything. Thank you, Pat. You really touched me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Colombe, for your sharing. Razia, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll say it quickly. To me, love is complete acceptance of this otherness, this apparent otherness, without the desire to change them in any way. Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't think love is a doer. Love isn't a doer. There's no action. Looks like Razia agrees with me.
Sorry, no, there is no doership actually, because that which does is not us. There is, and we could say that love is the doer, in fact, because it could be, love could be God, could be Brahman, could be awareness, could be anything, you know what I mean? And that is the only seeming doership that happens, like there is this kind of happening. But there is no doership in the sense that, like when you're washing dishes, you'll say, who is the one washing dishes? It's not you, because you are here. You are not in this body. The body is just there. And I mean, there's proof, like if you just do this, like you block your eye, and you see it, you just get simply dark, because that's where you are, you know? And so, yeah, there is no doership as such. Even when you drive in a car, like, and you say, who is the one driving? Because you get there and you're not even tired, you know? So, unless like there is like this duality where there is me and there is this awareness. But then gradually it becomes this undifferentiated awareness, where you are completely identified with what is. I'm not saying that I am, but I'm just saying. Thanks.
Can we find out what teachings everybody's into?
Sorry.
Well, let's I'd like for Pat to respond, and then perhaps Venetia, and then Chitra, because there are hands going up, and I want everyone to be able to say what they want to say. But Pat, if you had anything to respond to with Razia, and even Chitra.
Yeah, I think, you know, I was saying to yourselves earlier that there has been in the spiritual circle for many years this idea that that our true nature can't be talked about, or it can't be explained. And I can see that it is possible to articulate this, you know, to allow your true nature to use you as a channel in order to articulate what it is, or even to point to what it is. And that's why I think it's really important to be spontaneous and be creative, you know, to allow yourself to face the fear of being spontaneous, and to allow yourself to be expressive, spontaneously expressive. I think it's so important to do that, whether it's writing or singing or doing things with nature or art, whatever, that the creative process is an expression of our true nature. It's so important to do that. And the more you trust yourself and allow yourself to be a channel for that, the more we can point to that in the world. That's an expression of love. You know, even in what you're saying, Philo, about doing your job, if you're doing it and expressing that, spontaneously expressing your understanding of your true nature, that is an expression and an articulation of what our true nature is, you know. So I think it's so important to encourage that, to encourage self-expression.
Anisha, please.
Venetia, go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. Thanks, Bo. Thank you so much, Pat. Lovely to see you. I could just show you what love is. That is love in all its glory, and it doesn't need any explanation or any sound coming out of my voice. That is so love. And I feel very connected to my heart listening to you all of you. And I really enjoyed, Flo, what you said about the efforting being the being. What I would see as maybe the natural instincts. So it's a natural and something natural that can come, which, like you've both been sharing back, is if there's not a judgment of that, I think that's really beautiful. I mean, that I'm really going to take that away with me, actually. I think it's just about that. For me, love is allowing. It's softening and allowing what is.
Did you say love is alive?
Allowing, well, alive is a good
Allowing.
one. Thanks, James. That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, I like that. Alive, allowing, soft.
It's
soft
living,
and-
isn't it? I mean, it's alive,
Yeah, absolutely.
like the tree you were indicating.
Yeah, tree's just fab. Anyhow, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have to go, but thank you all so much. I really enjoyed listening.
Thank you for dropping in.
Thank you.
Charlie, good morning. You have a lovely smile.
Unmute, Charlie.
Can't hear you. Can you put your mute on, off? Your mute is on. No, can't hear you. Gotta hit at the bottom of your screen. Far left on your screen at the bottom. There's a mute button, Charlie.
Okay, I got it.
There you got it. Oh, yeah.
Very good to be here. I was here earlier, but I don't think I was seen. Yes, I love how Philo likes to talk about being, and this is how I see love. And also light. I like to call it that. light, and so love itself is, to me, the expression of being, or the extension of light. It's just how it manifests in the world, through the body, how our nature does. And so, yes, it can come in any form and all that, and that's not the thing itself, because it can be misunderstood through all of our different perspectives. But it is the nature of everything. It's how I see it. And so I could call it being and the expression of that being, or I could call it light and the expression of light into the world, or I could call it love and the way that love is expressed from the highest way. And then so it's like clouds coming into this world. It can be obstructed in many ways, and but the extension on the other side of the cloud is the same, and it is an expression of ourselves, and that's why it feels so good. But anyway, that's what I have to say about it, and I appreciate you guys. I just love you people.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Back when I was writing about awareness, every time I used the word awareness, I always attached the word affectionate to it. Affectionate awareness. And I haven't been using that particular expression, but it comes out and back as we're speaking, that awareness has an affectionate quality. It is affectionate. It's not having something. It's not separate from anything. And that to me is a wholeness of affection.
Thank you, James. Alla, you have your hand raised? Go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, Pat, also, and for all the comments. It's lovely. The word love sometimes is freighted with all our programming. But I know exactly what you're talking about, Pat. There was a T-shirt that somebody gave us as a gift years and years ago, which stays with me all the time. And on it were gigantic letters that said, same, but different. And it's like, when you get past all the differences, you see the person in the street that's homeless. You see your next door neighbor, you see somebody you love, and the sense of affection and our interplay between each other. It's all the same, but different. And so the love then becomes the foundation of, hey, they're exactly the same as me. The awareness is exactly the same. The fact that they were raised in an unfortunate situation or a fortunate one or whatever is totally irrelevant. That's just the different. So, but anyway, to me, I always think of love more as awareness versus the word love, because I have to shake off the baggage of what love is in terms of what it's been packaged to us, but it's the same thing, whatever we call it. It's same, but different.
That's kind of the problem with the word God as well, because for many people that has the connotations of different religions. So sometimes it's better to use the word source, and love is the source, or source is love, or awareness, or whatever terminology we use, or what people are comfortable with.
I really liked Benitia's demonstration of love when she pointed the camera up to the tree. It kind of like, I felt this little rush into the body. And which love does that. It's like this little rush. But it is, and the tree exemplifies that. It's perfectly impersonal. It's not personal. And it's unconditional. It doesn't have any conditions. So anything can happen in love, and people find that hard to understand. Terrible conflicts can arise in love, and love lovingly allows it to happen, seemingly. And there's some bigger picture, something that humans can't see right immediately. Only in retrospect do we see, hey, out of that conflict, all of this other good stuff arose. And maybe that will fall into conflict and something else will arise. And we can begin to intuit it as some kind of manifestation of being, how being operates. The entire universe is doing that. Galaxies are being destroyed and born. Stars being sucked into black holes and new stars arising. And in our bodies, that's happening. Every cell is dying and new cells are arising. So on every level, there's conflict. And all of that is happening in being, and being is doing all of that, or being is all of that. We can say that also. So the word love has got this connotation of goodness and emotion, high emotions and harmony, but there's also the other side, and that cannot be separated from the positive, what we call positive. In fact, it's all neutral and impersonal. And if we are in awareness, living from that point of view, then a lot of our suffering is mitigated by this understanding.
Yes, Krishnamurti says that love is like death and creation. He just runs the three of them into one amalgam of recognition that the elements of love include death and creation, and must be so. There must be endings for beginnings in that. Otherwise, there would be no change, no growth, no life itself. Love is life itself. It's the stuff of life. It's why we can easily say it's alive. It's living. It's not less than that.
Chitra, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
I'm kind of curious what all the teachings are that you're into. Like Allah, she said, she mentioned Tony Parsons. Is that like her main teaching?
Allah, you want to respond to that?
I'm a yogi.
Yeah, you were asking me. No, I'm into everything and Pat Nolan's a teacher. My husband's a teacher. Filo's a teacher. You are. I mean, there is nothing. It's just over history. I've read many books and have been exposed to many non-dual teachers, but no, everything around me has now become a teacher, and sometimes a hard one, including illness. That could be a hard teacher, and but it's just like, this is what happens. Things arise. They come.
What are you reading now?
Right now, absolutely nothing. I'm just enjoying the walks in the forest and having breakfast or a cup of tea.
Razia, what's Razia into?
Like who would I, like right now I'm listening to Ramana Maharishi, I think it is. And yeah, and what do? I think most of the time amid I am meditating.
What'd she say?
Most of the time I spend in a kind of a meditation, like mindfulness and like I don't know, trying to, I don't know what I do, like, and I cook and do everything clean and stuff. But I feel like teacher or such, you know. Anyone, I would listen like to Philo and James, and there's amazing resonance, you know. And whatever carries the like resonance, and then music. I like music. Something I like good music, like transports you, you know, into a world. It's certain music. It kind of like takes you out of yourself. And then you find that you're looking around you and everything is so bright and so beautiful, like, you know? And you're looking through like childlike eyes and falling in love with everyone. No matter who comes along. You want to just, thanks, Chitra. I like you. I love you.
Did you say that?
I said I love you.
Who said that? Who said that?
Love said that, Chitra.
You said it?
Love.
Love said it.
Well,
Love doesn't talk.
love does talk, actually. Love doesn't have any conditions. Love is
Yeah.
unconditional. So it can do anything and does.
Yeah, I have a completely different outlook, point of view about what reality is.
Mhm.
Initially,
Yeah, we're all gonna have different point of views because we're all in these different bodies with different experiences. But for me, this whole meeting is really pointing to our common view. Like nothing that has been said here that I can really disagree with. I see that point of view, and you know, it's Pat's his view is fully in accordance with what I see, that there's love. We can call it love. I call it other names, but I recognize the energy that's coming from Pat.
You
Like
call it
I'm
nameless,
resonating with that
right?
because we're all doing this together. So yeah, love can speak. Strangely enough.
I answer that. Like if you look at it, like, you know, we take that no mountain, no mountains. Right. And if we look at we are in this dualistic world, right? And everything is you and me and this and that and love and hate, right? We live in that world, right? And then we kind of shift and we see that this world is just this undifferentiated awareness. There's nothing separate, like, you know, you can't grasp onto anything. And then you return again to the world. You integrate back into the world. That's the only way where we exist as such. So, like Chitra was saying, now that's it. It's love, like you were saying, Philo, love talks. Because you're integrating back into the world, you have to. You cannot exist this emptiness or as emptiness, you know. So we come back. And then, yeah, I am talking, but this is love. This is God as well. You know what I mean? It's all God. That's what most people say. It's all awareness. There's nothing. Thanks.
Pat, I'd like to invite you to kind of close up our meeting. We've got about 5 minutes, maybe 7 or in that area. Did you have any
Well, you see, all I would say is we gather in awareness as awareness. We gather in love as love, and we gather in peace as peace. And whatever happens in that, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's not all that important. What's said is not important. What happens is not all that important. Nothing can enhance our true nature, and nothing can diminish it. So it really doesn't matter what's said. It absolutely doesn't matter. It's not personal. Nothing is personal. So whatever is said, whatever happens in awareness, this is just a microcosm of the world. Things are happening. People are saying things. People are doing things. Life is happening. But it's not enhancing or diminishing our true nature. Our awareness is allowing it all to happen. And it's not personal. None of it's personal, you know. So it's interesting how once people are allowed to say what they want, they have all sorts of points of view and all sorts of expressions. And they can be spontaneous. That's the whole thing. We can be spontaneous. We're not judged here. We're not judging one another. We're loving one another. That's why we gather in awareness. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Pat. That was wonderful. Great meeting as it should be, as it can be, as it is. James?
Gosh, I love that. What you just said, Philo, as it should be, as it could be, as what it is. That's a nice kind of 6-word summary of the immediacy of our being. Alan, did you have a comment? No.
So we'll close the meeting. Thank you all for coming. 2 weeks from now, there'll be another one of these with Ed Conley. Hope you can join us.